This is your Delaware Valley. It's a valley of rolling farmland, a valley of homes, churches, busy streets, and highways. A valley of industry and progress. But above all, it's a valley of people. Perhaps no other part of our country has experienced the pains of growing more than we have here in the Delaware Valley area. With this growth have come new homes, jobs, industry, and not surprisingly, new social problems and expanded old ones. For this reason, the services supported by the Delaware Valley United Fund are more important than ever before. Working along with you this year to make this campaign a success is a group of outstanding local citizens, all volunteers, representing both management and labor. We would like to introduce them to you individually. DVUF President Harvey C. Emery, First Mechanics National Bank. Campaign Chairman Charles Levy, S.P. Dunham & Company. Miss Jean M. Turano, Trenton Saving Fund Society. Myron G. Darby, Jr., Sulfo Paint Manufacturing Company. Robert Biddle III, Biddle Company. Dr. Herbert M. Wolf, physician. DVUF Vice President Walter Shelmett, Electrical Workers Local, 1130. Walter R. Reed, De La Valle Steam Turbine Company. And William S. Borden, W.S. Borden Company. While our volunteer leaders continue to plan the 1958 campaign, we have a film we think will interest you.
The emergency call came into police headquarters just before 11 o'clock. Juvenile gang fight across town. 40 boys involved, some carrying weapons. I'm a police reporter, and my job is trouble. People in trouble. Some stories I can write and forget even before they're printed. There are others I can never forget. Reporters aren't supposed to show any emotions, but this pack of tough, snarling youngsters made me cringe inside. The fight broke up, and most of the boys ran. I watched the police as they grabbed the leaders of both gangs. I noticed one of the leaders in particular. He had a strong, bold face, and his eyes burned with hate, and I thought, this is one kid against the world. Mike, gang leader, tough guy, potential criminal. As I said, some stories haunt you. Mike's was one of these, so I decided to do a follow-up on him. I tracked him down through the welfare agency that had taken his case. One of the things they had done was to introduce him to a place in our town where adults take the time and trouble to work with youth. I learned that Mike had been a serious problem at first. He was a tough guy, a troublemaker, defiant, cynical, arrogant. They tried to talk to him, but he'd heard it all before. It's a wonder he kept coming back, but he did. As time passed, a change came over Mike. Wasn't very noticeable, but it was a change. Hate disappeared and suspicion took its place. And then there was uncertainty. He began to wonder at what this place was doing to him, what the other boys thought of him. Finally, there was curiosity. Curiosity about a place where they didn't expect anything from you but friendliness, where you could shoot pool for free. Now and then Mike forgot and dropped the mask for a moment. He was still a leader. The adults in the Young People Center recognized this and encouraged him. But the day they knew that Mike would make it was the day he put on a white shirt and brought his little brother to see the place where he had found himself, a place where at last he could really belong. As I wrote them in the city room, I noticed that the stories that haunt me had one thing in common. People in trouble always seem to feel alone. This aloneness runs like a thread through these stories. It's true with youngsters, and it's true with the very old. Take two elderly people enjoying the spring sunshine. 100 miles away, their tragedy is just beginning. It starts with a gentle spring rain. Clouds darken and wind drives the rain in sheets. One day passes, 2 days, a week, and the rain still falls. Gentle streams become raging rivers. Rivers spill over the land into cities and towns. There is devastation, destruction, and misery wherever you look. And the sunny front porch is gone forever. Even before the flood has crested, the American Red Cross has provided a shelter for the homeless. I watched the Red Cross work. Quickly and quietly, emergency supplies were moved into a warehouse on high ground. They thought of everything, even a worker to entertain the children through the long hours of waiting. As I listened and watched, I could feel their relief as this couple began to realize they weren't alone, that they didn't have to face by themselves the destruction of all they owned. Through the Red Cross, a powerful force was at work to give them strength and courage. The water receded and they were homeless. The Red Cross helped them plan their future. With their own meager savings, together with help from the Red Cross, they were able to find a new home. It takes time, work, planning, and money to replace what disaster destroys. But through the American Red Cross, the job is done again and again and again.
Attention all cars, all departments. Missing person. Be on the lookout for one Jane Doe, 1266 Grand Avenue, described as a student, female, white,
14 years old. A missing person, missing from home. missing from algebra and history, 14 years old, and alone. We tried the railroad station and then went to the bus terminal. The police will tell you that when you're looking for a runaway child, you feel a sense of urgency, a feeling that you may be just one step ahead of an even greater tragedy. I saw her on a bench, and I knew then that this was one story I'd never write. I sensed her feeling of aloneness, a desperate kind of solitude. This was the old story, a child driven into flight by fear and shame and panic. After she'd left with the social worker, I felt that perhaps I should have told her she wasn't alone. I should have told her that here, among these strangers, these unfamiliar faces so occupied with their own thoughts and problems, was the quiet force that would help her find a solution. But I don't think she would have understood. Her parents and the social worker took her immediately to a place where she would be cared for and understood. She lived among other girls who faced the same problem. In this safe and secure shelter, there were many activities to help time pass quickly. But there were nights when she was lonely, filled with thoughts about home and family. It must have seemed to her that nothing would ever be the same again. A word of understanding and reassurance worked miracles on those lonely nights. She studied hard so she could take her year-end exams anyway. Finally, the long wait came to an end, and so did the story I couldn't write. The story of a little girl who'd been afraid to go home, of a little girl who thought her life would never be the same. Every day our giant presses pour out these little stories. The ones I remember are of children in trouble. To most people, these stories are read and then they're forgotten. But there is one story I can never forget, an unfinished story. It began with a little girl and a rubber ball. How do you write it? How do you tell the pain and patience of a child who must learn to walk again? How do you describe the agonizing months that passed so slowly? How do you describe the tremendous courage in such a tiny heart? This was a special story for me because she was my own little girl. It was here I realized I could never have handled this alone. And as I watched her struggle day after day, I thought about this feeling of aloneness when trouble or tragedy strikes. I thought about it, and then I knew that you're never really alone here in our town, no matter what happens to you. I remembered the faces I'd seen in the bus station. I thought of the crowds on the street, of the people in our church, of neighbors. They were ordinary people, people like you and I, who, through their united community giving, provide a place where kids like Mike can find themselves. It is this quiet crowd that makes possible a shelter against the world for those who face problems bigger than themselves. It is they who stretch out a hand to youngsters crippled by accident or disease. It is they who provide comfort and help for all who need it. And you? What is all this to you? It is you and others like you who are the quiet crowd. It's you who are a part of hundreds of everyday miracles. A child walks, another speaks, a boy finds his place in society, the aged find a home. These are your miracles. These troubled people may not know your name or your face, but they do know that because of you, they are no longer alone. When you make your pledge in this year's campaign, remember that they look to you, because it is you who can give them hope. It is you who hold their futures in your hands.